Hey everybody, in today's video I'm going to walk you through the process of making homemade tomato sauce from fresh tomatoes, and I am choosing to can these. They don't have to be canned, but that's what I'm going to do. This is the third box of tomatoes that I will be processing this year, and so at the end of the video I will show you what I did with box 1 and box 2. If this is your first video here, my name is Ashley and welcome to my kitchen. While I do have a backyard garden and I have a lot of tomato plants, I decided a couple weeks ago that I would put a special order in through a local organic farmer to pick up some bulk quantities of tomatoes to can. We have not had a super hot summer, specifically where we live. We live right on the edge of one of the Great Lakes, and it can keep things a lot cooler. The rest of our state has been hot, super hot this summer. However, we have been a little insulated right where our house is. Tomatoes love the heat, and as we're getting closer and closer to the end of August, I started to get nervous that my tomatoes were not coming in as quickly as I felt like they should, so that I could get a really good harvest. So thankfully we have these local organic vegetable growers that I was able to get good bulk quantities from. So I decided with this third box I would make just sort of like an all-purpose, super easy tomato sauce. The tomatoes that I used were primarily Roma tomatoes or plum tomatoes. They are really good for making tomato sauce because they already don't have quite as much juice as a slicing tomato or a cherry tomato and those types of varieties. Making tomato sauce is very easy, but there's a lot of different people who have a lot of different theories on how it could be or should be done. The sauce that we're making today is going to be pretty basic, super easy, super simple. I don't want it to have too strong of a flavor one way or another, so that it gives me the most versatility when using it throughout the year. There's also different techniques that people use to make the sauce. Some people put all of the tomatoes in a big kettle, let them boil down, and use an immersion blender or batch blend them in a food processor or a blender to make that really smooth consistency. Me personally, I prefer to run them through what's called a food mill, and I have a really great one that attaches to a counter or a chair is what we usually use, and it separates the skins, seeds, any sort of tough parts away from the juices and the fleshy part. The first step is going to be to slice these tomatoes, get them cooking and softening so that when we run them through the food mill, it just goes really, really smoothly. I've talked about this blue book of preserving before, Guide to Preserving before. It is a fantastic, super simple, super straight to what you need. There is a recipe for tomato sauce in here, and literally all it is tomatoes and lemon juice. I was going to originally do that, but I think I might throw a couple seasonings in here. My plans always seem to change when I'm in the moment and I get inspired to shift directions a little bit. But I do have some pretty simple things that I'll add in just to give it a little bit of flavor. Okay, we got our tomatoes cut up and we ended up having to split this out in between two different big pots we've got. And we're just gonna kind of bring this to a boil, let it simmer, boil for, I don't know, 5 or 10 minutes until the bigger, harder pieces kind of break down. And then it'll zip through our food mill very, very quickly. Okay, here we have our sauce going. It was boiling a little bit, and what we want to do is reduce the volume by half. So it started about there. So as soon as it gets to about half that volume, we will get it canned up. I'm just going to kind of let this go, let a lot of this liquid evaporate off. And I am using a flat spatula to work with this. And the reason I like to use this is just in case anything starts to stick. It gives me a nice sharp flat edge that I can kind of just make sure things aren't sticking on the bottom. I'm going to can this in pint jars because that will give me about 2 liquid cups, which is the closest to like a tomato, like a 14.5 ounce or so tomato sauce can that you would get in the store. When you factor in the headspace, a 16-ounce jar will probably be closer to 14.5. But because I don't know exactly how many pints I will get out of this when everything is said and done, I'm not going to add the lemon juice until I actually put the sauce in my jars. And I really wish I had more bay leaves, but I don't, and I don't want to put in any small crumbs of them because I want them to be really easy to pull out. So I'm just going to put in 4 bay leaves. You can put in onions, garlic, any of that. I'm not going to put in any fresh. I'm going to put in just some garlic powder, about 3 tablespoons. And then I also have some homemade garlic salt, which has a much deeper flavor. So I'm going to add some of that. I'm not going to add too much more salty things. Also, salt, when you can this, is entirely optional. Because we just added a little bit of salt in the garlic salt, I'm going to maybe cut the recommended salt in half when I actually put this in the jars. Or, you know, maybe I'll leave it out. I haven't quite decided yet. But I'll be salting things as I use this, so I'm not super concerned about the salt content. So we're just going to let this go and reduce. I'm not even sure how long it's going to take, but it's early in the morning, so we have all day to kind of do this project as well as can it up. There's a lot of different ways that you can make tomato sauce, not just in terms of like the blending process, but especially if you're going to be doing like a fresh sauce and then using it right away. There's people who will blend, you know, sort of like almost like a homemade tomato paste with a boiled down version like this, with some of that reserved. Like if we reserved some of this fresh right now and then added it in, you get the sort of fresh tomato taste with the sort of sweet caramelized tomato that's been baking. In addition to the boiled down version, it makes a much more like complex flavor. But because I'm going to be canning this and leaving it on my shelf, I'm not going to get too involved in creating that type of product because it's going to be boiled in the canner anyway. So any work that I do, especially with reserving any sort of fresh amount, will be cooked anyway. However, I just talked myself into trying to make a little bit of the tomato concentrate paste. As I was describing how it caramelizes, I started thinking, wow, that sounds really, really good. So we'll give it a try. I'm just going to take some of this out. And if this seems to be taking a lot longer than the boiling process, I can just throw it in whenever. I bet we can get a really nice thick caramelized flavor out of what is happening here. I started my oven at 350 and I'm just going to kind of see how it goes. Keep an eye on it. This is an experiment. We'll see what happens. We are about 3 inches down. I will go about another ½ an inch to an inch. So not too much longer. So we're about 75% done with the stuff on the stove. And look at this. Look at this thickness. That is amazing. So I'm guessing by the time the stuff on the stove is done, this will be a lot thicker and nice and caramelized. Okay, here is my oven tomato sauce now. All done. Definitely a deeper flavor. So we're going to add this to the sauce on the stovetop, mix it up, and get it canned. There's a ½ inch headspace on these jars, and these pints will boil in the water bath canner for 35 minutes. I'll start my timer once it gets to a rapid boil. 35 minutes. We'll let them rest for 5 minutes without the lid on and pull them out. and they'll cool down overnight. Our tomato sauce is done, out of the canner. All I have to do now is wait for it to cool down. Then I can give the jars a quick wash and they will be good to store for 18 months or longer. So there you have it, tomato sauce made from fresh tomatoes. Okay, as promised, I said I would show you the different things that I canned with my first and second box of tomatoes that I got. So I did a massive batch of salsa. This by far gave me the most jars. I actually have jars in this flat and in this flat minus the 1 pint. The rest of these are full, as you can see. This gave me more than anything else. Let's see, there's 4, 8, 11 jars. There was 12 quarts, and then this makes 24 pints plus the missing one, plus there was 2 more. So there was actually 26 pints, 12 quarts of salsa. This salsa recipe is amazing. I have a video on it that I'll link up in the card in the corner if you want to check out the recipe. But the reason this gave me more jars than anything else is because of all of the added ingredients. There was lots of bell peppers, onions, garlic, hot peppers, and then there was also some vinegar to be able to bring up the acidity. So there's lots of extra ingredients. Fantastic salsa. We've already eaten, well, 1 quart, 2 quarts, 2.5 quarts. I will need to do a pantry tour sometime soon because right now all of my jars are kind of, you know, on this shelf and that shelf, but I do try to group the particular item that I can together. So I have just regular canned tomatoes, and I did this with 1 entire box. I just think that in addition to tomato sauce, these are incredibly versatile. I did more quarts for this one. I felt like given the type of tomato product that we would probably use quarts more than pints in our family. So we've got these 5 pints right here, and then all of these quarts. So that makes 16 quarts, 5 pints. The reason that these look slightly different is that they have the black crim tomatoes from our garden in addition to some of the tomatoes from the farmer. And so that is why those just look a little darker, because those tomatoes are more almost like a purpley color. So that's what I did with box 1 and 2. We've got a lot of really delicious preserved tomato products that I'm super excited about. That's going to be such an awesome way to help feed our family this winter. I hope that you enjoyed this video. You have a wonderful day, and we will see you soon.